further onward with 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Paul has been talking about because you can do a thing, a lot of times it's not good to do a thing. So sometimes that thing that you do can form a stumbling block for your brother or sister. You know, last time I talked about the complaints of the locals at Corinth about other people eating meat sacrificed to idols. Now, when you get down to brass tacks, it's really no big deal because an idol is nothing. They don't live, they don't breathe. People kneel down in front of them all the time. We make big ones, and people go, ooh, oh, that's fantastic. According to the law, we're not supposed to make any kind of graven image, yet people make big Jesus statues, and statues of other, what they call the saints. The saints are everybody who's born again. If you're born again, you are a saint. You are sanctified, separated, and supposed to be getting further and further separated from the world. Now, that's one of those things that, yeah, as a Christian, I can do anything that I want to do and still go to heaven, but what are those things I want to do? As a born-again believer, I don't want to build statues and kneel in front of them or call them saints or call them God or anything. It's like people put up Christmas trees. I have in the past, but if you know where a Christmas tree came from, it's actually the part of the Tammuz cult, part of Baal worship. Now, if you put one up and you're going to worship the thing, then you built yourself an idol. I haven't put one up in the last few years because basically, you know, maybe I'm getting old or something. But I know and understand that I don't worship it. I think it's pretty. I like the lights. People ask me, you worship, you know, you're one of those, you're religious, what people say. No, I'm not religious. I'm a born-again believer. Yeah, that's December 25th, you know, that's the birthday of Jesus. No, it's actually the birthday of Tammuz. It's just been kind of, Jesus has been drug into it. But just because I can do this sort of thing doesn't mean I really, really want to. And sometimes it can really make a stumbling block in front of my brethren. And so I'm not going to invite a Jewish guy over at the house and say, how's your pork roast? Unless I know that he's not, you know, whether or not he's eating kosher, you know, according to the law. So he's going on to explain a few things. Before I do that, J. Vernon McGee told a story about a preacher that had a fine horse, slick and pretty, nice and fat, well cared for, not dumpy fat, but, you know, fat and slick. Horse and a beautiful creature. But this preacher was about big around as your fist. He was skinny, frail looking, and one of his members of his church says, preacher, how come your horse looks so good and you look so skinny? He says, well, I take care of and feed my horse, and you guys take care of and feed me. Now, kind of, if you get the drift, you understand that the church wasn't exactly taking care of their pastor. We're obligated to do that. If you're a member of the church, you're obligated to take care of your preacher, because that's a workman is worthy of his hire, and he's the guy that's out there feeding you spiritual food, so there's no reason why you can't feed him out of your material gains. because you're really obligated to do so. Sometimes they come around and don't ask a dime. Me, I do this for free. Nobody's paying me to do this. I just felt led of the Lord to do it. So you guys want to start sending me money, don't. Of course, I don't expect you to be inundated with cash too soon over this, and I don't. So, that's my glory. That's what I get to glory in. Not that I'm wonderful or anything like that. It's just that I get to do this, and God's letting me do it, and He's wanting me to do it, and I feel led to do it, so I get to do it. So, yeah. Anyway, take care of your pastor. He's beating his brains out. If you have a time at your particular church that you go out and visit with folks, go. Don't let a church of 300 have 5 people that show up to go out in visitation. After all, it's not just the pastor's duty to go out and knock on doors. It's everybody's. We're here to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ as born-again believers. Help the man out, because I guarantee you he has a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job, and most of the time it's unthanked. Paul says, am I not an apostle? Am I not free? A lot of people have had a problem with his apostleship due to the fact that he used to go out and kill folks for being Christians, and for other reasons why. Am I not an apostle? He's going to defend his apostleship. Am I not free? Am I unobligated? I'm free to move around as I seek. I have no obligation upon me. I do this as on my own free will. Have I not seen Jesus Christ our Lord? He has seen Him. A lot of times people say one of the marks of apostleship was actually being around and seeing Jesus when He rose from the dead. And He was around, and I guarantee you He probably saw Him. Are you not the work? Are you not ye my work in the Lord? Just like ye are my work in the Lord. Some of you, I don't know, might have come to Christ as a matter of watching these things. I don't know. But you're my work in the Lord. These people were His. He came there and built this place up. One people of the Lord formed the church, and you're my work, whether or not anybody else believes it or not. If I be not an apostle unto others, yet doubtless I am to you. For the seal of mine apostleship are ye in the Lord. You are a sign that I am an apostle. You have freedoms as a Christian. But the apostles, of whom there are no more, a lot of the apostate outfits will say, I'm an apostle, or the Mormons sit there and go, we have 12 apostles. I beg to differ that, no, you don't. You have 12 guys that say they are. But he has other freedoms as an apostle, other things he can do, such as healing and things of that nature. Not everybody was into that, or could. That was one of the things that apostles could do. Now, as far as healing is concerned, look in the book of James. If someone's sick among you, call for the elders, all of that. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, save the sick alive. It's not a person that does it, it's just the prayer of faith. It's God answering prayer. Was not your salvation a matter of God answering prayer? Everything that we do between us and God is a matter of Him answering prayer. We have a language out of the Holy Spirit, within us that talks to God as a language that nobody can understand except God. And it's not a bunch of gibberish. It's nothing that you understand. Only God can understand it. Mine answer to them is that, do examine me in this. Have we not the power to eat and drink? Have we not power to lead about a sister, a wife, as well as other apostles, and as the brethren of the Lord, and Cephas, that's Peter? Uh, these people had the power, the authority under God to be married. Peter was married, and he was still an apostle. Paul, uh, they say that as a member of the Sanhedrin, you had to be married. So at one time, he was married. His wife may have quit him because he didn't mention her much. Might have been a good thing. You never know. No, let's don't get me wrong. But they have the power, the authority to do things like that. Or am I, and only I and Barnabas have not we power to forbear working? We're talking about paying the preacher. They have the authority to do it for free. They didn't charge anything when they came up to your particular church and taught for 8 solid hours. They didn't charge anybody when we fell on a kid who fell out the window and brought him back to life. He didn't charge a dime for that. We have the power to do this thing also with forbear working without doing a job. Now, Paul the Apostle was a tent maker. That's what he did for a living. He didn't charge anybody in this church a dime for doing what he did. But we also have the power to do it without doing a job and let the church take care of you. So who goeth to warfare any time in his own charges? I never saw a GI yet that would pay to be in the military. Yes, I would have paid to get out of it, but I stood my 4 years in the Air Force, and I got through it in one piece. But a GI doesn't take care of himself. What the job he does, he is paid for. Who planteth a vineyard and eateth not of the fruit thereof? Which would be dumb. It's the work you put in. Why shouldn't you reap some of the harvest? Or who feedeth the flock and eateth not of the milk of the flock? If you have a bunch of sheep, every once in a while it's okay to butcher one and have yourself some mutton. That's fine, because you worked at it. Say these things of men, or saith not the law the same also? For it is written in the law of Moses, thou shalt not muzzle the ox that treadeth out the corn. We got these oxen walking in a circle on a threshing floor, and with its feet it mashes the corn, and it falls through, and they collect it and grind it. But under the law, I got that on the wall up there. You can't see it. You can't put a muzzle on him. You can't keep him from eating. The creature is working, so why should it not be fed? I guarantee you it can't eat enough corn to put you out of business. But you're taking care of business because the creature is doing work. Soldiers, like I said, we got paid. Farmers farm. Why shouldn't they eat part of their harvest? Why shouldn't they benefit from it? Or saith that he is altogether for our sakes, no doubt. This is written, that he that ploweth should plow in hope. If you're going to work, you should expect a compensation. And that he that thresheth in hope should be partaker of his hope. Hey, if you're a farmer and you're threshing out the corn, why shouldn't you eat part of it? Yeah, you're going to sell the rest, but yeah, you have a hope when you plant that it's going to bring up, you're going to profit from it. You're going to have good things that come out of it. If we sown unto you, if we have sown unto you spiritual things, it is a great thing. Is it a great thing if we shall reap your carnal things? If the preacher is preaching you good things and giving you spiritual food to eat, what is wrong? And there is nothing wrong with you taking care of him with your carnal things. I'm independent Baptist by choice, and most independent Baptist churches are small. So in a lot of cases, in most cases that I know of, except one, the pastor actually worked a job because the church wasn't big enough to support him. Whether it's by design or whatever, that's just the way things were. It's nothing unusual, but it was also, we also paid him a salary as much as we could, and other things every year, like every year at Christmas time we give him a pounding, which is comes from the custom of giving the preacher a pound of this and a pound of that, not taking him out and whooping him in the front yard, not that kind of pounding, but we took care of him as far as we could. And like I say, I've been churches small enough to where the pastor had to work for a living, but we still took care of him as much as we could. And it's not a bad thing. It's, in fact, it's actually a great thing. It's actually a fantastic thing. If others be partakers of this power over you, are not we rather? Nevertheless, we have not used this power, but suffer all things, lest we should hinder the gospel of Christ. That's the reason why he didn't take a salary, because he didn't want those carnal things to get between him and that church. Well, I heard years ago, as a member of Thomas Road Baptist Church, and Jerry Falwell caught it the worst of anybody I've ever saw. He's just up there collecting money. Ladies and gentlemen, I tell you right now, Jerry Falwell would call up the treasurer in that church on a Monday morning, get an estimate of how much they brought in on Sunday, and that money would be spent before that phone hit the cradle. He had many things going. The Elam Home for alcoholics, a home for unwed mothers, worldwide ministers everywhere, all kinds of things. Yeah, Jerry Falwell got a salary for being a preacher, and we had one of the members gave him a house. They had that kind of money to do that. But Jerry Falwell didn't preach for money. He preached to present the gospel. That's why thousands upon thousands of people have been saved in that church, or something associated to that church. Paul the Apostle, on the other hand, he made tents. That's what he did for a living. He didn't want that kind of thing to get between him and his church. But it would be nothing wrong if they paid him or helped him out or anything like that. Nevertheless, we have not used this power, but suffer all things, lest we should hinder the gospel of Christ. Do you not know that they which minister about holy things live of the things of the temple, and they which wait on the altar are partakers with the altar? A lot of the meat that came off of those, sacrifices, if you read back there in the Old Testament about the sacrifices, you find the things. Only one or two of the sacrifices was actually the whole animal was consumed. The rest of the time, the things that like the liver and intestines and things that are vile, used to clean blood and things of that nature, those are things that were burnt on the altar. And the rest of the animal, a lot of times, most times, it would be collected up, and the owner of that animal that brought it in for sacrifice would take the meat home. And some of it would be thrown into a pot outside the Holy of Holies, and once a day the priest can go in there with a hook and hook meat out of there. Other things that people brought in for sacrifice were the things that the priests ate of. They were taken care of by the people. God set this thing up in the law. Even so hath the Lord ordained that they which preach the gospel should live of the gospel. Yeah, taking care of folks that preach that gospel. God will take care of you. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, God will take care of you. You don't have to have a salary. You can do it without one. I feel like that a church is still obligated to take care of their pastor as much as possible. But if you're doing the things right, God's going to take care of you. He's going to make sure you have what you need. You're not going to get filthy rich for most cases. There are lots and lots of people right now that are getting filthy rich off the gospel. But don't worry, because when they stand before God, they're going to get to explain it all. Of course, I believe that most of them won't have a chance to say much, because they will be judged according to the gospel that they perverted. And it said, are you saved or are you not? It said, hey, look at all the good things we did. Hey, we built a church in an auditorium, old hockey rink. It's fantastic, wasn't it? That's when he will cast them into the lake of fire. And I've met preachers that don't have two nickels to rub together. They're just happy as a clam because they know where they're going or they're gone. And it makes them happy. It makes them ecstatic to preach the gospel. And even to say those things will walk all over your feet. I'd say that, yeah, I've gone to church and got some happy messages. And I've also gone to church that received things where God has tap danced on my feet. Got all over my toes. Yeah, but be happy about that too, because God cares enough to tell you about the things that get between you and Him, and get the devil involved. And once you let stuff get between you and God, and Satan will be the author of anything that gets you pushed away further. So don't do that. But I have used none of these things, neither have I written these things, that it should be done unto me. For if it were better for me to die, than that any man should make my glorying void. He lived off the gospel, and it's a glorifying thing. It makes you fantastic. It feels fantastic. When you don't worry about carnal stuff. Because like I said, if you do it right, God's going to take care of you. And you'll be happy about the whole thing, even though you're wearing rags. And I've seen some raggedy preachers. But that's their congregation's fault. For though I preach the gospel, I have nothing to glory of, for necessity is laid upon me, yea, woe is unto me if I preach not the gospel. That's what preachers feel like. They feel lousy if they don't get to preach somewhere. Now, there's not too many places left to preach, because people don't want to hear you. They don't want to hear this. Send this to your friends. Forward it on. Like I said, I don't do this for money. I do this to spread the gospel, to explain the Bible, to make life better. For I do this thing willingly, I have a reward, but if against my will a dispensation of the gospel is committed unto me, I get to do it whether I like it or not. Sometimes it's kind of it can be kind of a drag getting started. Sometimes my health is not so good, but hey, the Lord's given me authority to fight on through that. So here I am. That'll teach you. What is my reward then? Verily that, then I preach the gospel, I make the gospel of Christ without charge, that I've used not my power in the gospel. That's the reward. Uh, For though I be free from all men, yet have I made myself servant unto all, that I might gain the more. So he's talking about abusing what power he has. Abusing, there's things that you can do, but it's expedient that you don't. In this case, he's talking about getting paid and things of that nature. He could have used his power. He could have, hey, I'm an apostle. I get special treatment. But he didn't. And unto the Jews I became a Jew, that I might gain the Jews. To them that are under the law, as under the law, that I might gain them that are under the law. He was a Jew. Paul the Apostle was a Jew. What is the tribe? I believe Benjamin, the tribe of Benjamin. He could deal with Jews because he was a Jew. He understood where they were coming from. He understood their mindset, and therefore he could deal with them as Jews. To them are without law, as without law, being not under the law of God, but under the law of Christ, that I might gain them that are without law. He could also deal with people outside the Jewish race of men. He was that smart. He was well blessed. He was well educated. He was well healed in Christ, that he could go to anybody. To the weak became I as weak, talking about somebody who was weak in the faith, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. It's good to know things. It's good to understand things. I myself have endeavored to try to understand the Jewish mindset and where they're coming from. There are lots and lots of Jews out there that are still trying to keep the law to get to heaven, because they've still denying Christ. But there's becoming more and more Jews saved every day. And people in the Middle East, that's happening more every day. But it's good to try to understand the people you're dealing with. Now, if I were to go to Ethiopia, it would be really good for me to learn the language and to try to understand the people there, understand their culture, and things of that nature, so I could be that, to them, to try to win them, not to go in there and try to change everything around. So, well, if you're going to get the gospel, you've got to start acting like we do, and they're going to look at you real funny and tell you to get lost. For this I do for the gospel's sake, that I might be partaker thereof with you. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run that ye may obtain. Run for the prize. Get out there and crank it on. There's only one that actually gets the wreath, the winner's wreath. But he's saying, go for it like you're trying to win. Spread the gospel like like it's a foot race and you're trying to win. Get out there and get with it. Don't hold back. The world will think you're funny. The world will hate you. The world hates you if you're born again. I guarantee you that. I've lost a lot of friends. I've lost jobs. I'm getting rid of the Bible thumper. We don't like religious people around here telling us we're bad. I'm just repeating the book. But if you got to have something to throw rocks at, it's usually the guy that comes and gives them the gospel. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. You're talking about taking care of business. If you're training for a certain sport, you take care of your carcass. If you're a runner, you take care of your body. You eat right. You exercise. You run a lot, get your muscles all separate, you know, all set up to do what you're going to do, and you separate yourself from stuff that would uh, hurt you. You don't eat or drink the things that would hurt you. You don't smoke cigarettes. You don't drink booze. You leave things alone. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we are incorruptible. The crown that we have is incorruptible. The crown of salvation um, cannot be corrupted. It's yours. But we have an incorruptible crown. I therefore so run not as uncertainly, so fight I not as a one that beateth the air. Can you imagine somebody going out in the middle of a boxing ring and just start punching the air? What is he good for? If you're a boxer, you're supposed to be out there beating your opponent and making contact. He's talking about someone just actually wasting time. If you're presenting the gospel and you're trying to and you're not doing it right, you're not doing it correctly, you're telling people other stuff, you're out there fist fighting with planet Earth, and it just won't work. The worst part is you're out there trying to fist fight with God, and your arms are just not long enough for that. So do those things that you know are right. If you're not doing them, correct them. God will tell you how. He's big enough. He's large and in charge. But I keep under my body, talking about keeping your body under subjection, not letting the things of the world, the fleshly things, rule him. He's talking about it keeping under my body, keeping your body under subjection, and bring it under subjection, lest that by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway. So, talking about being a hypocrite, if you're out there preaching to others and teaching the gospel, and you're not living it in front of people, yeah, they're going to think of you as a hypocrite, a castaway, pointless, useless. That's the message. And there's going to be more coming on, but it's more of those things that that we can do. We just really should not do. It's keeping yourself into subjection, leaving those things alone that we shouldn't be messing with. In his case, he went on and did the gospel, did his duty as an apostle, not asking for money, because he could have got paid, but it would become a stumbling block. And but if you have a pastor, take care of him, even though he doesn't ask you a dime. And if he's a good one, he won't. Some of those churches that I've been in where the pastor couldn't, had to work and all that, a good one would sit up there in front of us and say, people ask him, what kind of salary are you looking for? And he said, I'm not looking for a salary. I'm just looking to pastor this church. And that's the guy you want, as long as he's preaching the gospel and correctly and teaching the Bible correctly. That's the guy you want. The guy that is not up there asking for stuff. Take care of him so he won't be the skinny horse rider. So that's more of things we can do and things we really shouldn't do. And moving on, chapter 10 next week, I'm going to find out more of, and I will bring it to you. So send this to your friends, even the ones that don't like you. They may not like you anymore. They might even like you less, but it's good for them. It's good for me, and I hope it's all good for you. So, once again, I'll say God bless you, and you have the message.